Ed, Edd and Eddy is one of the most beloved and longest-running cartoons of all time. The series started in 1999 and ended in 2009 with a movie as its final. It's a comical and hilarious cartoon about three friends who do new scams daily. We'll be covering the whole series, so let's get right into it. Let's start with a brief background of the show. Ed, Edd, and Eddy, often known as the Eds, are a trio of friends who live in a neighborhood known as Cul-de-sac in the town of Peach Creek. Three of them have unilike natures and personalities. The first guy is Ed, who's strong but dim-witted. The second guy, Ed, also known as Double D, is a creative, responsible, and the smartest in the group. And at last, Eddy, who acts as the leader of the group, is a mischievous guy who is always scheming and planning to earn money through his scams so they can all eat their favorite candy, Jawbreakers. There are several other characters in the show as well. Sarah, who is Ed's bossy little sister, and her friend Jimmy, a sensitive guy. Johnny is a strange but friendly kid who treats a plank as a living being and as his friend. There is also another trio, the Kanker sisters, a group of three sisters who have a crush on the Eds. Kevin is a bully whom you'll find on his bike most of the time. Rolf is a hardworking immigrant, and at last Naz, a popular girl who is the crush of several boys in the neighborhood. The first episode starts with Ed labeling his stuff. After a while, Eddy comes and pranks Ed. Ed invites him to his room where they find out that Ed's magnifying glass is missing. They go to Ed's place after that, where they again get to know that Ed's sister, Sarah's doll, is missing too. So Eddy thinks that there is a serial toucher behind this. The Eds announce in the neighborhood that there is a serial toucher. Kevin and other kids agree that they would pay Eddy if he captured the serial toucher, and Eddy accepts it. The Eds set a trap by setting Ed with a don't touch sign, and whoever touches him will be the serial toucher. Later, Johnny with his plank comes and touches Eddy, concluding him to be the serial toucher. The Eds start tormenting him to spill the truth. After a while, Eddy discovers that both Sarah and Ed misplaced their stuff, and there was no serial toucher. Poor Johnny. He went through all of their evil playings for nothing. The Eds buy Jawbreaker from Kids Money. The next episode starts with the Eds going out to a forest for a bug hunt because of Ed's love for nature, where they get scared of scary eyes following them and calling their names out. After a bit, the Eds accidentally jump into the mud and get saved by the Kanker sisters, who are new in the town. The Eds wake up at the Kanker sisters' place in strange robes, where they discover weird artwork of each sister with an Ed, but Eddy thinks it is a joke. The Eds are presented with burgers and soft sofas to comfort themselves, but eventually they irritate Kankers, and they start forcing them to do the house chores. After doing many chores, Eddy gets fed up and yells at Lee. May angrily tells Eddy to go away, and Eddy happily accepts this. But when the Eds begin to leave, they meet the Kankers at the door again, who are holding the doll versions of the Eds. The Eds run for their lives, you know. I would have done the same if I were on their shoes, and Kankers watches them go, thinking how lovely they are. The next episode starts with the Eds, who are fed with the high temperature, finding shades so they can cool off themselves. Kevin mocks them when he finds them hoofing around in a sandbox. He tells them that he'll be going to Naz's sprinkler party. The Eds decide that they will go, even if they are uninvited. Eddy takes them to his house and shows them a briefcase, which contains 3 small swimsuits. The Eds barge into the party and nobody feels happy to see them, but Naz accepts them. After a bit, the Eds goof around with everyone there, and to gain everyone's attention, Eddy tries to perform a stunt. At this moment, their small swimsuit rips off in front of everyone, so they run to the pool as the last resort to cover themselves, where they stay until night. When they find everyone asleep, they try to run off, but they accidentally hit a beehive. Now bees are attacking them, and they are running to save their lives. Catching up to the next episode, Double D and Eddy shower while Big Ed forgets to take a bath, but is still wondering why these flies are roaming around him. All of them open their new juice stand, where both of them find out that Ed hasn't taken a shower and is smelling gross. Ed ruins everything, even their scam. Double D and Eddy decide that they will give him a shower and then give him a new, fresh look. After that, they told him to go along with everyone to win their hearts. Eddy cashes the scheme by starting a show where people can watch the new cool and awesome Ed for money. But after a while, Kankers arrives and ruins the show by teasing Ed and making him lose his confidence. Further, they steal Eddy's money too. Now the Eds are freeing their minds after this incident out in a candy shop where Ed, trying to cheer everyone up, says, "I say the cheese is always twice the fence post." The next episode begins with Eddy polishing a car and other kids complimenting him. Double D comes, and both of them go to Ed's house, where they find Ed in a weird dress at Sarah's tea party, who somehow forces them to dress up too. Now they are servants of Sarah, who is now acting as a princess. After some time, her friend Jimmy arrives and she demands a horse race with him, with Ed and Eddy as horses. After losing the race, she cages Eddy. Eddy gets fed up and rages out, but when he realizes he's getting paid for it, he plays along. Sarah and Jimmy start misbehaving, causing a mock, so Eddy turns the table by caging Sarah and becoming the king. The episode ends with the Eds painting a diorama to fool Ed's mom. In this episode of Ed, and Eddy, the Eds are searching for bottles to trade for money in a dumpster, and they manage to get a lot of glass items. As they head to trade the glass items to buy Jawbreakers, Ed sees a movie poster for Robot Rebel Ranch. The movie being only for adults saddens him, and they start thinking about how the story of the movie would be. Ed starts telling the story of three space outlaws, and their journey begins to resemble Ed's journey. They start pretending to be space outlaws who crash on a robot planet and find a retro van, which is now their spaceship. I should say, we all have done that once in our lifetime. In their delusional play, they think they're fighting enemies but accidentally mistake Sarah and Jimmy for robots and throw cans at them, not realizing they're real. Sarah interrupts for dinner, and Ed and Eddy leave. Ed feels betrayed because he's still in character, but they take him home and the episode ends here. Not gonna lie, bro was really in delusions. In this episode, the Eds decide to make their own treehouse. They find a suitable location, a perfect tree for it, and they finally build Club Ed. After the hard work, they fail to recruit members for Club Ed. Eventually, Cankers comes and takes over the house, causing chaos. They try to recapture it, but every time they just fail. In the end, Eddy ends up in a thorn bush. When Double D removes the thorn, Eddy plans to make a catapult, but the pain makes him reconsider this. In the next episode, we find out that Sarah has a crush on Ed. The episode starts with the Eds searching for a four-leaf clover for their good luck in a garden, where Ed finds a rare species of flower and Double D keeps it. Eventually, Ed gives it to Sarah as repayment for Eddy ruining her and Jimmy's play, which makes Sarah admit that she's in love with Double D. God, I feel bad for the poor Jimmy. In the next scene, the Eds are making a pizza when a bell rings on the door. Double D checks it, and it's Sarah who came to Eddy's house for Double D. Eddy and Ed find out about Sarah's crush on Double D. She even starts calling him her boyfriend and starts getting clingy so Double D can feel her love. However, Eddy and Ed come up with the idea of reuniting Jimmy with Sarah, who is in pain that his Sarah has left him for Eddy. When Jimmy finally reunites with Sarah, Sarah forgets Double D, and now he's finally free again. The episode Tag Your Eds starts with the Eds in search of milk for their favorite cereal, Chunky Puffs. After some time, Kevin comes and challenges Double D to throw a ball, but Ed, who is weak, decides to train with Eddy to become stronger, but he injures himself while trying to punch a punching bag. Eventually, Eddy sets up a new wrestling ring and makes Double D wrestle with Plank to boost his confidence, but Ed couldn't even beat the Plank and the Plank injures him again. Eddy challenges the Cankers for a wrestling match, but they end up losing. In the end, the Eds eat their cereal dry and enjoy it. In the episode Flea-Bitten Ed, Ed mistakenly upsides down a garage instead of a sign, which makes Eddy open Ed's Pet Boutique. The Eds make a chaotic scene when they try to clean Rolf's dirty animals. Ed mistakenly puts lipstick on Rolf's cow and ends up swelling and floating due to his allergy to rabbits. After many tries and treatments, Ed finally relieves himself and becomes normal. The episode ends with the invasion of rabbits in the garage, forcing the Eds to watch TV from Eddy's roof. As Napoleon said, "There's nothing we can do." The last episode of Season 1, Avast Ye Eds, begins with Eddy showcasing a tire swing, but suddenly the ropes break and Eddy goes flying. This gives Eddy an idea of a new scam, Creek Cruise. The Eds sell their tickets to Jimmy and Johnny. Chaos happens again when the bridge collapses, but still, after saving them, they start their adventure. But after a bit, Cankers arrive as pirates with a new boat chasing them. They damage their tire boat and capture them. The episode finishes with the Eds' unsuccessful Creek adventure, which leaves them defeated. In episode 1 of Season 2, the Eds find a box of turkey blasters in a junkyard, and Eddy, being Eddy, schemes to sell it as Canadian imported water guns. The kids rush to buy it, and Eddy's jar fills up with money quickly. While everyone is enjoying themselves, the Canker sisters intervene to crash the party. Oh gosh, when are they going to leave the boys alone? They steal their money jar and challenge them in a cowboy-style shootout and defeat them. The episode concludes with the Eds fearing Cankers, lipstick, and home cooking. In the next episode of Ed and Eddy, the Eds set up a gelatin swimming pool, but Ed drinks it all out. After being disappointed, they go to Ed's basement where they find the upcoming monster movie marathon. To watch it enjoyably, they go out to raid Ed's kitchen for snacks, but Sarah kicks them out. The Eds try various methods to watch the movie then, but fail. At last, they end up at Rolf's house, where they forcefully listen to his boring stories. They sneak through the vent and find an old TV whose production is very low, and nobody is interested in it except Ed, who forces everyone, even Rolf, to watch the movie. Well, this is the first time I have seen the big Ed this messed up. This episode starts with the Eds working on a scam, but Ed's imaginary friend, Jib, distracts him. Eddy and Double D start trolling and teasing Ed and his friend until they become fed up. Jib insults Eddy, causes mayhem, and even disrupts Eddy's scam. After Eddy completes his scam skill crane, Ed introduces Jib to the other kids and gives them a fake present. This makes Eddy furious, and he makes a plan to trap Jib. Along with Jimmy, he tries but fails. In the end, Jib is forced to leave the cul-de-sac, and while Ed is sad, Eddy takes revenge on Ed by shooting an invisible potato at him with an invisible slingshot. Thank God, the trio is back together again. The next episode starts with the Eds with their new scam, Essence, and they are with Rolf and Johnny with his Plank, getting money from them by telling them they are interacting with ghosts and souls. Soon, Sarah exposes their fraud and bosses his brother to obey her orders. This makes Eddy angry, and he comes up with a plan to get a new place for Ed so he can live in peace. Eddy and Double D help Ed pack out and deliver his stuff to Ed's new home, Rolf's shed. At first, Rolf welcomes them, but he soon gets tired of them after they start bothering him by ruining his habits and routine. Then they start moving his shed from one place to another, making a huge mess, using his farm wrongfully, eating food from the fridge, sleeping in his room, and making him sleep on the floor, which makes Rolf angry and frustrated. Rolf, in the end, rages out and makes the Edds do all the chores of his farm and house. And here the roles get reserved, I think. The episode Urban Ed starts with the Edds wanting to make cul-de-sacs similar to big cities. They build a cardboard metropolis and call it Etropolis. Other kids, including Johnny and his plank, join in too, but shortly they start feeling hectic and strange because of their city life experience. They experience funny city situations like traffic jams, fake pigeon droppings, and a fake tattoo parlor. In the end, everything goes wrong, so they take down the cardboard city and go back to their peaceful neighborhood. This episode is hilarious and tells the cons and pros of city life. The next episode starts with the Edds in a playground showing everyone their new scam, but they fail at it and break the seesaw. Someone there advises them to repair it, and Eddy gets inspired by Double D and starts his new scam of repair service. They start by trying to fix Jimmy's oven for money, but make a huge mess and leave the house after damaging it instead of fixing it. Then they see Johnny, whose head is stuck in a tree near his house, but Eddy asks him for money for help, calling it a repairing fee. They go to Johnny's house to get soap, but break his sink there. After repairing it incorrectly, they end up creating a sauna, so they open a sauna bath in Johnny's home for money. Somehow, Rolf accidentally gets naked and everyone starts to flee, which causes huge chaos in which Johnny's house gets destroyed, which makes the kids angry, but Eddy again covers it with a funny play. In the next episode, the trio walks in a forest and finds themselves near a small hill by the junkyard. They use that tree as a catapult and they accidentally land somewhere where kids are playing truth and dare. The Edds join in too and give dares to each other to intimate one another. The dares lead to such a funny situation that everyone switches personalities and roles, which ends up leaving everyone in confusion about identifying the real person. Episode 1 of Season 3 is one of the classics. It starts with the kids in the cul-de-sac enjoying a race to the candy store on their wheel, while Rolf feels left out due to not having wheels. He wants to go back to his hometown, and Eddy sees this opportunity to make money. He convinces him that a magical shoe can grant his wish to return to his old village. The Edds make an artificial village for Rolf, making him believe that it's real. Rolf involves himself in the village customs, and Eddy focuses on getting money from him. But then Johnny comes and wakes him up from the delusion and makes him see the truth. He doesn't mind it much and still goes along with the Edds. The episode concludes with all four of them playing happily. Following the next episode, once upon an Ed, Johnny and his plank are about to go to sleep, but suddenly the Edds burst and broke out into a wall, ruining Johnny's sleep. Johnny demands an explanation of how they got stuck in his bedroom wall. All of them tell a different imaginative story. Eddy tells him a complete fantasy of him being a king. Double D, being the smartest, tells a logical and realistic story, and Ed tells him a dark-themed story of how the Canker sisters terrorized the Edds. After the Edds complete their imaginary events and exaggerated stories, the Cankers reveal themselves hiding inside the opposite wall, creating chaos. In the episode, the Edds are broke and don't have any money to buy their favorite candy, Jawbreaker. They see Kevin at the candy store with 3 Jawbreakers, which makes Eddy greedy, and he tries to steal it but cannot and gets humiliated by Kevin. After a while, they discover Rolf is looking for someone to help him out with his farm chores, and he'll pay him money too. Eddy tries to get this job, but he declines, and instead of Eddy, he chooses Ed for this work. Eddy and Double D make Ed ready for his new work. At Rolf's farm, Ed and Eddy hide themselves in a tree and see that Ed gets treated badly over small things by Rolf, and Rolf starts deducting money from his salary. At this moment, they try to negotiate with Rolf, and he agrees that Ed will get a promotion, and Ed and Double D take over the job, but Eddy messes up. Rolf gives the Jawbreaker to Ed, to Double D, and in the end, eventually to Eddy as well. Following the next episode, Ed, and Away starts with the Edds scamming Kevin for a new bike. While trying it out, it breaks and Kevin gets injured. After a bit, the Edds see the balloon and try to pop it while causing chaos. They ruin Rolf's farm a bit, asking, will they ever stop ruining and damaging Rolf's farm? My god, and ultimately disrupt Jimmy and Sarah's flight game, and Sarah furiously pops the balloon. The Edds, especially Eddy, get disappointed at this loss, but Kevin, who wants to take his revenge, launches another so the Edds can be humiliated again. In the next episode, Eddy tells his friends about his brother's bedroom and how cool and amazing it is, but when they go and see the room, it's full of weird and strange things. Ed finds a strange map of Eddy's brother's treasure there. They find out the location is near the Canker sisters' house, so they dress up like workers and go into the location. They use Ed's strength to dig up the treasure. They find the treasure, but it's not actually the treasure, just a bunch of wishbones. They mistakenly break the floor of the Canker's bathroom. Ed and Double D calm down their wrath by giving them their money, while Eddy, being Eddy, doesn't, so they make him stay with them. The episode ends with Ed telling Double D that he did the right thing, and Eddy faces the outcome of his actions. The next episode starts with the Edds with their sandwich stand and Jimmy being chased by Rolf's goat, Victor, who's trying to eat his sandwich. Sarah arrives and saves Jimmy. This makes all of the kids laugh, but when Nas arrives and lectures everyone not to tease Jimmy, This makes every boy there fall in love with her except for Jimmy and Rolf. Naz asks Sarah to play baseball, and eventually all the boys join them. They purposefully make Naz win the game and start fighting over who's going to pitch next. Naz leaves them thinking that they are immature. Now the boys try to make up their plan to win her heart. Kevin teams up with Rolf, and Ed's try to make their plan too. Everyone tries to win her, but ends up scaring her. In the end, we see Ed seeing for her outside her home, but find it was Jimmy acting like Naz. Well, at least I gotta say they did try to show their riz, but all in vain. The next episode is again affiliated with Eddy's brother. Gosh, who is this man? I want to see him. This episode starts with Sarah and Jimmy trying to understand a new scam called Ponstila Ed's, a restaurant. Eddy let them go inside after taking the dollar from Jimmy. Ed is taking the orders, but he gets help from the chef when chaos happens, and guess who the chef is? It's none other than Chef Ed. Everyone leaves and freaks out when they see Ed covered in gravy. Eddy starts thinking about why his scams aren't successful like those of his brother, and this thinking gives him the idea of rumoring that his brother is arriving, which causes fear and excitement for the kids. Eddy invites everyone to a party, but everyone causes him trouble. So he lies and says that his brother is not there to keep control. The next day, Sarah and Jimmy disguise themselves as Eddy's brother, causing chaos for everyone because she figures out that the Eds were lying the whole time. In the episode Brother, Can You Spare an Ed? Ed helps Eddy in his dancing show scam. Sarah interrupts the show and gives money to his brother to buy fudge for her. Eddy convinces Ed to buy a jawbreaker for his sister's money, which causes an argument among the friends. At last, Ed buys the jawbreaker. Double D feels guilty, and when Sarah and Jimmy ask Ed about fudge, Double D promises to pay them back. Eddy comes up with a new plan of years, where they'll give wedgies for money. Double D comes up with a plan of punishment for Eddy to make up for what he did. The other kids join in too. Eddy comes to realize that he is unable to pay his debt as he keeps getting launched into a tree branch. The last episode of Season 3 starts when Ed mistakenly loses control of the model rocket and gets distracted by a strange voice who introduces himself as Baron O'Beef Dip. This guy tells him to do weird things. Later, Double D finds out that Eddy is behind it with a walkie-talkie. When they confront Eddy, he admits and tells them that it was an experiment to control people. He starts using this experiment as a scam on other kids, but he fails and Sarah breaks his walkie-talkie, stopping the scams. Eddy gets frustrated, but in delusions, thinks the scam was a total success. The episode ends with Eddy trying to find new scams. In Season 4, we see the Eds make their own escalator and start a business scam, with Eddy as the boss and Ed as his assistant. The scam becomes successful, and they even start hiring their friends. But Kevin kind of ruined their scam by fighting with them and damaging the property. The kids ask them about their pay, so Double D tells them that the company is non-profit, which makes everyone leave the job. Did you notice that someone is missing? Yes, ED. While everyone was busy with their own things, Ed upgraded his escalator, which goes to the moon. The Eds land at the moon, which makes the moon break its position due to their heavy weight. The episode, A Twist of Ed, starts with the Kenker sisters trying to be with their crushes. Ed teaches Eddy the idea of reverse psychology and devises a plan to scare the Kenkers. They set up Ed to scare the Kenkers with reverse psychology. Double D plans to go to their place to scare them, so they should stay away from them. They try different things from time to time, like Eddy giving the Kenkers flowers, which accidentally scares them off, but Eddy feels nervous, which makes the Kenkers conclude that the Eds are doing an act. Eddy takes his friends upstairs and goes into the Kenkers' room, but the Kenkers lock them in, revert to their usual goofy personalities, and start kissing their unwilling boyfriends. The episode, Here's Mud in Your Ed, starts with Johnny and Sarah fighting in a playground because Johnny wanted to create a sand donut with Sarah's shovel, but he ruined Sarah's sand cake. Now that Jimmy is sad and alone, the Eds scam him by their fake amusement park. They take money as a fee for the amusement park from him, but it turns out to be a garbage area, which makes him cry. He plans to take revenge on him with the help of Rolf. They set up a money tree for the Eds because they are always scamming for money. Eddy finds the tree from the tree's smell. Yep, that's right. That's Eddy for you. Eddy trades the money tree's seed for all the furniture and stuff. But in the end, when he tries to sow the seed, he checks the sack and it contains a spool. They go to Rolf's house and they change the spool to a bolt as a money tree. But the silly Eddy accepts it, falls for it again, and saws it so it can be a money tree. The episode ends with Eddy making the same mistake again. In this episode, Eddy introduces a new machine, Thingamajig, which can give people whatever they want. Many kids buy it, but Eddy's scam backfires when a mysterious hero, Captain Melonhead, appears with a plank. We all know who's behind it. He stops Eddy from stealing kids' money. Eddy decides to take revenge on him by setting a trap, but he fails. Ultimately, Captain Melonhead saves the day and promises to make the neighborhood peaceful. There also comes an episode, Take This Ed and Shove It, where we see the old age of every character. Eddy still being the schemer, Double D now a wise old man, Ed who is still dumb and innocent, Naz who's still trying to look young after being old, Sarah is still as bossy as she used to be, John still the happiest guy, Jimmy who still worries a lot, and Rolf add a funny touch to the episode. It shows both the good and hard parts of growing old in a funny way, which fans really love. With a new short story about every character, this episode brings many hilarious scenes, making it a fan favorite. Season 5 comes with something special that we first time see the kids going to school. The episode Mission Ed Possible is about the distribution of report cards at Peach Creek Junior High. Johnny, Naz, and Kevin are happy and satisfied with their grades, while Rolf is worried about his D grade in typing. Eddie and Ed, however, are concerned about their poor grades. Ed, under the principal's orders, is tasked to deliver Ed and Eddie's report cards to their parents. Eddie attempts to make changes in his report cards, but Ed outsmarts him by making Rolf secretly deliver the cards. In the end, Eddie and Ed's parents arrive to discuss their grades, and Ed faces the consequences of not studying properly. In the episode Every Which Way But Ed, we get to see many facts about the series that were never shared with us till now. We get the backstory of Johnny's plank. We also see Johnny with hair. Yep, you heard it right. A fat version of Naz, Rolf's homeland, and many more, like how Eddy and Double D became friends, and even then, they were plotting scams. The episode Boom Boom Out Goes the Ed starts with Kevin, who is at Rolf's place to watch the Miss Arduous Field Worker pageant, a special event from Rolf's homeland. Meanwhile, Eddie, Ed, and Double D are at Ed's place. Suddenly, the power goes out in the entire neighborhood, causing panic among the kids. Ed starts imagining and he spreads rumors about mole mutants causing this, which scares everyone more and more. Eddie takes advantage of the moment and starts selling homemade mutant repellent to his friends. While Eddie focuses on his scam, Double D decides to investigate the sewers to find out the real cause behind it, so he can calm everyone down. But things start to get more chaotic. Ed ends up getting stuck in the sewers and needs help. The kids work together to come up with a plan to rescue Eddie and fix the electricity. At last, the electricity comes back on and Ed is safe. But Ed and Eddie are still making up new imaginary stories and events. In this episode, Ed wakes up to Ed's flying shoe. The Eds forget that today is Saturday, but accidentally get ready for school. Ed discovers that his bathroom is getting reworked, so he tries to find another place where he can take a shower. Eddie refuses to let him take a shower at his house, so he goes to Jimmy but leaves, seeing him busy. He further gets rejected by Sarah and Johnny, and they make him more dirty. He feels desperate now, but again tries to get help from Rolf, but he accidentally makes him messy and gross. Naz catches up to the smelly Ed and takes him to her bath. Ed feels excited and lovely, but finds it full of her underwear. At the end, Eddie sees Ed making Ed bathe outside his home in a tub. The episode Cool Hand Ed starts with a trio at the school. Ed, who is inattentive, Ed, who is organized, and Eddie, who is bored as always. Eddie makes a plan to escape during gym class. At lunch, they gather the material they need to make an airplane. Johnny and Plank eavesdrop on them, and they threaten them to tell everyone about it if they are not included in it, but Eddie agrees to include him in it too. Naz finds the junk they left and didn't clean. Suddenly, an alarm starts, which makes them rush things and fly as soon as possible. Ed tells them that the plane isn't finished yet, but they ignore him and take off with Johnny and Plank. But still, after a while, they crash into the back of the school. Eddie blames Ed for the failure of this adventure, and the episode concludes here. The next episode starts with a spelling competition at Peach Creek Junior High, where Ed is fully confident that he'll win. His competitors are Rolf, Plank, and Ed, who's getting help from Eddie. Kevin and Eddie start betting. Eddie places his bet on Ed, while Kevin places his bet on Double D, who thinks a win misspells the word gravy, which makes Ed win the competition. Kevin pays Eddie, but blames Double D for it. Naz catches Johnny tricking her. After this event, Ed becomes the smartest one, and Eddie comes up with the idea of cashing Ed with his new intellectual and smart image with his new scam, Egghead Ed. Ed feels unmotivated and sad, but he hides his feelings. The scam turns into chaos when kids start getting bad grades because of Smart Ed. The kids demand a refund for their money and chase them down. Ed, being the smartest, starts fixing things and showing everyone that he is still the smartest. Eddie tries to get his back and make up with Ed. In the end, Johnny forgives Naz but says that she hates bald kids. This episode starts with Eddie wanting to be on a basketball team, which annoys Rolf and Kevin. However, Eddie leaves after a while and meets Ed, who is now in charge of the school newspaper. He asks him to join as well. Eddie initially agrees when he finds out he can make money from it. They start selling newspapers by making up some wild stories. Ed goes to sell them, and after reading those crazy news stories, everyone makes a mess, and those stories make them fight each other. When some angry students come to ask about that wild author, Bobby Blabby, for the answer to those wild headlines, Eddie tries his best to hide his identity as the one behind the stories, but he ultimately fails. Although Ed fixes up things with boring stories again as a punishment, now Eddie has to join the knitting club and make a giant doily, which he hates. In this episode of Ed, and Eddie, Eds are preparing to go on a school trip to the Jawbreaker factory. Eddie and Double D are filling up their pockets with balloons to carry Jawbreakers for later, while Sarah, along with Jimmy, is fighting with his brother for the front seat of the bus. Sarah and Jimmy cunningly trick Ed into thinking the sky is falling, causing mayhem. Ed's panic messes up their plans to leave, which makes Eddy angry and frustrated. Double D calms down Ed, and they make a strange but cool vehicle to catch up to the bus. During their chase, Eddy fights for the front seats, damaging their vehicle. After a while, they're lifted into the air where they accidentally cause some damage. Sarah and Jimmy come back with lots of jawbreakers, but Eddy is sad that they missed the trip. In the end, the Eds realize it's best to just think about imaginary stories rather than try to make them real. And yup, fantasies should be left as fantasies. The first episode of season 6, May I Have This Ed, starts with Ed chasing a donut, breaking things, and making a scene in the school. But he finds out that there is a school dance tonight. Eddy, trying to be cool, is ready to impress the girls, while Ed, as always, is hesitant. They practice on Ed how to talk to girls at Eddy's house, and of course, Eddy forcefully makes Ed do it too. At the dance, the boys and girls are on different sides of the room. The Eds, now in formal clothes, are ready to dance. However, their plan goes wrong when Maz asks them to dance with her, and they lose confidence, leading to awkward moments. Maz ends up dancing with Ed, while Marie gets mad at Double D for this. Eddy messes around with Kevin, and Ed dances with Wilfred, which causes chaos with Rolf and the Cankers. The Eds find positive things even in this mayhem, and the episode concludes here. In the last episode of season 6, we see Winter arrive in cul-de-sac, which makes all the kids happy except Jimmy. He goes on a series of different funny incidents like getting attacked by snowballs, freezing in ice, and more. Ed feels bad for him and comes up with a plan for his safety. Now the Eds are patrolling the school year to prevent any further mishaps. They rescue Johnny and Kevin from a lot of accidents. But the problem arises when Eddy turns it into a business, which makes Jimmy quit this club, and he starts his own club, which starts to gain popularity. At the end, the Eds get stuck in an ice, Jimmy becomes popular, and Jimmy succeeds in saving everyone. Ed, and Eddy's Big Picture Show serves as the final episode of this series. The story starts with chaos after the Eds do an unknown scam. Ed rushes to gather his things like the sponge collection and butter toast in a panic. Meanwhile, Ed, being the nicest guy again, is writing a letter for his parents and packing his stuff, while Eddy is the most panicked among them and worries about being caught by the kids. And we all know that Eddy is the real reason they are running right now. Eventually, they hide in Eddy's brother's closet and start to argue about who was at fault, and soon the kids get to know about their original place. The kids break in and the Eds try to flee the situation. After many attempts, they finally find a key hidden in a peanut. The Eds flee from them in Eddy's brother's car, and the kids, who are already tired and hurt from earlier, still chase them. Gosh, they must have done something wild. They chase after them throughout the whole cul-de-sac and barely escape their capture. All of their friends and foes want to chase and capture them, and they all have solid reasons for it. Kevin and Naz team up to capture them, while Rolf decides he'll chase them on his pig, Wilfred and Johnny with his plank as the superhero Captain Melonhead joins in too. After a while, their cars break out and they end up in a desert. They are still trying their best to go to Eddy's brother's house for their safety. They come across many challenges and hurdles, including the Canker sisters. Sarah and Jimmy also get captured by the Cankers but manage to escape. Johnny and Plank decide to take a bus to find the Eds, while the trio arrives at a gag factory thinking Eddy's brother might be there. But they fail again and find it abandoned. Eddy again schemes to go to an amusement park, Mondo a Go for their safety. They find the Cankers. They're with kids captured for them, which is how they prove their love for them. The Eds finally discover Eddy's brother, who is not as Eddy described. Eddy's brother turns out to be a mean and villainous type of guy who starts to hurt and torture Eddy. Whoa, I didn't expect this. Double D gets mad and tries to help his friend, but he gets beat by Eddy's brother too, the Canker sisters, and even the kids. But for the first time, Ed uses his brain, which knocks out Eddy's brother. Yeah, Ed is using his brain. It was pretty shocking for me too. Eddy, being badly injured, accepts that he lied about his brother so people could love him and think he's cool. The kids forgive, give, and sing a friendship song for him out of love for him. Naz gives a kiss to Eddy, and even Kevin praises them. But then eventually Captain Melonhead comes and beats down the Eds, thinking he has done something. But instead of the Eds, he gets beat up by the Eds' new friends. On this, Kevin announces a party and everyone starts loving the Eds as their friends. Thank you for watching. If you found this video enjoyable, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button to stay updated. Until next time, take care and see you in the next one.